Welcome to this session on the series on innovative teaching methods. We have in an earlier session talked about what is innovative teaching, and we said that the possibilities are immense because we could look at a certain sequence of steps in a classroom and do each of those steps in a number of different ways, and therefore possibly allowing for hundreds of thousands of different ways of delivering the same class. So, how do we create the essential conditions for innovative teaching? This is the theme of this session. And let's begin with some of the key premises. And the first is that every learner and every classroom is different. And I think this is what is very important, because when we start looking at innovative teaching, we are starting to look at a slightly learner centric method where learners become more interested in the teaching part. Of course, each teacher is also unique, and therefore teachers will come up with their own set of ideas which are possible. And these can be immense. It is not possible to list them a priori for you to follow, but you will create your own ones as you go along and think about what can be done. But what we want to do in this session is to give you a few feelers, a few tips, a few points which are like take-off points from which you can take off on your own, and while doing your task you can design your own innovative method of teaching a particular class, a particular topic. The other important premise is that all learners are curious and eager to know of new things. So the purpose of innovation would be to increase that curiosity, fulfill that curiosity, and get them interested in wanting to learn more. You can do this in a number of different ways. There is group work, there can be project-based learning. You allow for different learning styles of people, because they can be kinesthetic learners, they can be visual learners, and of course the technology which has been integrated into this thing. One very important thing which often teachers miss is about incorporating humor in learning. Laughter is a natural universal phenomenon with beneficial effects both physical and psychological. Learners love a teacher with a sense of humor. Mirth and laughter allow the class to be more relaxed, reduces tension, brings out creative and exploratory ideas, and typically you can begin with an anecdote, a joke, a story, or some cartoons and comic strips and animation. I love cartoons and comic strips. I try to put them in many of my sessions. Dennis the Menace is one of my favorite ones. I think lots of children can relate to it. I guess in current time, Harry Potter might be something which students can relate to more, but things like this is what is important. Having got the spirit, now all you need to do is to go back to the 9 steps of Garnier, and for each of these steps think of something which is kind of innovative and different. First is, of course, gain attention. Now, gain attention, you can present a good problem, you can talk of a situation, you can talk of something happening currently, a recent event, and since people like to see about maybe cinemas or cricket or games or movies, you relate to something around that. After you've gained attention, you have to start talking about getting to the goal, the learning outcome as we say, or the learning objective, and get them to feel that having learned this thing, they will be better off in some sense. Either their curiosity is fulfilled or their ability is enhanced and so on. You then have to relate it to prior learning. So that's another thing, because all learning builds upon something which is already there. In terms of the next step, which is about materials to be learned, you can give graphics and simulation, pictures. One very important aspect is to remember to chunk this in small amounts. The processing ability of children is not very high, so everything must be in short, crisp kind of things. Then of course ask them to do something, so that you are able to elicit performance and practice, and at the minimum at least give them multiple choice questions. A very important aspect after this is to provide feedback. So having got these answers, you must respond to that answers, explaining why they were right and so on. Often children stumble onto a correct answer by a faulty reasoning. And if it is just accepted as correct, the thinking will never have been corrected. So it's a good idea that even if there is a correct answer, give an explanation for why that is a correct answer, what could be alternative ways of doing it which would not be right. Then, of course, you have to assess, so you have to give some rewards, grades, marks, some nice artifacts, some things which children can relish and enhance motivation, and then try to see if they can transfer that thing to another context. Because the purpose of some of this learning is that they should be able to do it to another thing. So, in terms of language or mathematics or environmental studies, you talk about some principles and then let them see how it applies into their real world. So that is the way you can do some of these things, and of course it is for you to use your own ingenuity, imagination, your own context to create a plan for how you would do this in your own class.